Rabbi Friedman, can you hear me now?
I hear you.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
we're on. Okay.
Yes, we are on, and I can partially even see you.
Okay, we'll get the camera organized.
That's fantastic. Again, I just told people how grateful we are for you taking your time out and speaking with us because last time you have been on the radio, we got a lot of gratitude from our listeners because you did make so many people feel so much better and just gave a different perspective, a wise perspective on the situation, on what is happening in the world today. And you made me feel a lot better as well. So I'm very, very grateful to you, always personally as well. And as much as it did keep us going for a little bit, things unfortunately are getting harder. And the numbers, the projections that we're hearing today, that we're expecting 100 to 240,000 Americans to die before the pandemic is over. And we see that there's almost 1 million cases around the world. And you see those horrible numbers every day. I mean, what is it? 4 people in America die every minute now. I mean, sorry, 1 person every 4 minutes is dying in America. So I'm sorry. And those numbers are terrible. And it's very, very hard, even though you put such a wonderful positive spin on and perspective on how we can utilize this time and become better and do better. How can we not let the fear take over us at this particular time?
Well, two things. First of all, we all know that there's fake news. Maybe not intentional, but you don't have to believe all those projections. Nobody is a prophet, and nobody can say, because on the one hand, they're all predicting it's going to be this, it's going to be that. And on the other hand, they say, we don't know what we're dealing with. It's still a mystery, and they're still finding out what it is and where it came from. And so the sensationalism doesn't do us any good. We have to assume that this thing will disappear as suddenly and as quickly as it started. The second thing is, there is a concern, and of course there's the grief over every individual, of every person who gets sick, and certainly those who pass away. But what are the living supposed to do? We're supposed to give up because of all those who are passing away, who are dying? What are those who are alive supposed to feel when they see others dying? That's the question. Because if you don't have a good answer, then you just start to go down with those who are dying. And your whole immune system gets weakened. So it's not just an emotional thing where we don't want to create panic and we don't want to get depressed and we don't want to freak out. It's not just psychological. If you let it get to you and you start to panic, your immune system actually gets weaker and you become more vulnerable. And we can't afford to do that. In fact, we have to be more enthusiastic about life than usually as a reaction, as a defense against this thing. And many people are calling it a war. You see it on the news. We're at war with a virus. Well, if you're going to be at war, you better be confident that you're going to win. And don't let it intimidate you. So, of course, the tragedy is horrible. And some of the best people here in our community, some of the greatest, and just in this past week, have passed away. And there are no words. But we're alive. So how do we live? That's the question. It's not how many are going to die. How do we live while this is going on? Because you don't stop living until you're not living. So every minute of life, you have to live it. And that's what we're talking about. To live fully, to live enthusiastically, not to let this thing start to drag us down into negativity, which leads to negative things. I was just talking to some people who are going to be literally by themselves for the Seder. That's pretty sad. And you can interpret that very negatively. They don't deserve, they're being punished, they're going to suffer, they're all alone, neglected, unneeded, unimportant. Why do we always have to go the negative way? What God is saying to us, in general, you don't need to come to the synagogue. We don't need to have a big group of people. Individually, you are valuable, you are precious, and you are lovable. You don't have to have 10. By yourself, just you is wonderful. So God is saying, I visit and I come to every Seder. Every Seder. Doesn't matter how many people are there. It's personal, it's one-to-one. Like it was in Egypt. We had to put the blood on the doorposts as a sign that this is a Jewish home. That wasn't because God didn't know which one was a Jewish home. In fact, we had a very Jewish neighborhood. The Jewish neighborhood there was purely Jewish. You didn't have to mark your door. There were no Egyptians living in Goshen. So what was the point? The point is every house individually. It wasn't the collective. It wasn't the city. It was each house personally, privately, individually. And now it's the same thing. So if you're having a Seder by yourself, literally by yourself, no family at all, God is telling you, I'm coming to your Seder just as I come to every other Seder. And if you don't know exactly how to make a Seder, and you're going to mess things up, and you're going to do number 4 before number 2, and I don't care. If you're doing your best to make me a Seder, I'm coming to your Seder. Take it as a huge compliment. Don't turn it negative. So, if we live, I don't mean if we survive, if we live, if we're excited about life, then everything that happens to us, around us, adds to our excitement of life. Because if you're not excited about life, then don't complain about death. The degree to which you mourn and grieve over the loss of life, to that degree you have to celebrate and be enthusiastic about life. You can't have one without the other. Because if life is not wonderful, then death is not terrible. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. But then also people will ask a question, well, we see so many great people are being taken away. It's, usually you say, oh, it's a plague that punishes the bad. But you see so many great, amazing people who have dedicated their life, the doctors especially. I mean, realistically, we had 70,000 people come to New York over the weekend to help out. Those people are putting their lives on the line, and they're definitely the best of the best to be so selfless. And yet they have the biggest chance of disappearing, God forbid. How do we rationalize about the good ones being taken probably first?
Well, that proves the point. It's not a punishment. Those who are dying are not being punished for their sins because they're the best of the best. And they're certainly not being punished for our sins. That never made any sense. But I think, did we mention it last week also? We have this blind faith that says that death is forever, life is temporary. It's not true. Can't be true. Death is meaningless. Death is empty. Death is dark. That can't be forever. Life is forever. Life is wonderful. So let's change our attitude a little bit. Life is forever. Death is temporary. In fact, death is unnatural. The Torah tells us that people were never designed to die. The only reason we are dying is because we ate from the tree of knowledge, which means something is interfering with our true nature. By our true nature, we should not be dying. So how much damage can that tree do already? Like, enough? So we're going to heal from that poison from the tree, just as we're going to heal from this virus, and then we'll stop dying. And even those who have died will come back. We don't talk about this much because people freak out about it, and it sounds too mystical and weird. But it's not. We're terribly misguided when we have this acceptance and this attitude that death is forever. It's not. The world was not designed to end. Life was not designed to end. It's designed to uplift, to improve, to get higher and greater and stronger, only forward, only positive. So those who are passing away, the best of the best, it's only temporary. And once people start coming back, it'll be forever, and the world will become what it's meant to be. This is not the way the world is meant to be, obviously. So it proves the point. It's not punishment. We're not being punished for anything. Of course, we're being frightened, but really a little bit of that is up to us. How much you're going to panic, how negative you're going to get, that's really up to us. So that's our challenge. But for people going around saying we're being punished, we got to get our act together, we got to stop sinning, we got to stop doing this, doing that, that is so wrong-minded, and it's so obvious from the fact that look who's passing away. Not the biggest sinners in the world. So,
Rabbi Friedman, what about the consequences that we will be facing, God willing, once this is over, economically? I mean, the predictions, maybe fake news, maybe not, doesn't seem to be. It's being done by professionals who do know, who do study prognosis of the economic situation, and they're saying the economy is pretty much going to be wiped out.
And that might not be a bad idea. See, all the predictions are based on what was. So it's probably true. If we go back to business as usual, we're going to be in big trouble. So we're not going back to business as usual. We're going back to a better model. We have to. I mean, somebody mentioned, what are all the creative, inventive, ambitious people doing these weeks when they're sitting home? They're creating new businesses. Everyone is becoming a startup. Will that be the wave of the future? Everyone is going to produce something that people can use to make their lives better, and that's how they're going to improve lives and make a living? That would be nice. So the predictions are all based on old information. And it's always been that way. You know, all the dire predictions, we're running out of water, we're running out of wheat. Yeah, if you keep producing it the way you have been producing it, if you make as much wheat this year as you did last year, we're going to run out. So what's the solution? Make a lot more than you did last year. Don't use the old standard to predict the future, because there are new ways. There's always a new way. So business is going to be very different when this thing is over. People are going to work together. There's not going to be that kind of competition, cutthroat, rat race. That's over, hopefully. That kind of business.
Could I say amen right here?
Yes. Loud amen.
Loud. Thank you. That's good news. I also wanted to know, a lot of people out there are now using prophecies, especially prophecies that come from our teachings, from the Jewish teachings, to prophesize what is happening, what is about to happen, how it's going to be afterwards. Can you please shed some light on whether anything of that sort should be listened to, or what should be listened to, and what should be completely ignored?
Well, there's a way of measuring this. The more absolutely certain the person is, the more untrue it is.
Okay.
So it's interesting, to suggest and to dabble and to think, what did that mean? What does this word mean? It's cute. Don't get too serious about it. Unless you really are a prophet, then there's this thing online that says, unless you are Mashiach, stay home. So unless you are really a prophet, keep your opinion to yourself.
Is there anybody out there who is reputable enough that people can listen to regarding any type of prophecies?
No. And that's because we don't need it. Just take a look at what's happening and you can see there's no mysteries. The world is changing in front of our eyes. Why do we need mysteries? To predict the future. We pretty much know where we're going. And it's going to be different and better. So we don't need the signs from heaven. We're getting some pretty strong signs here on earth. So just watch what's going on and you'll see. If we needed prophets, there would be prophets, but there aren't.
I still have to ask, is Mashiach here already?
No.
No.
Absolutely not. No, the world is very confused. The world is very anxious. That can't be that Mashiach is here. It can prepare us. It can sober us up so that when Mashiach comes, we'll be thinking clearly. We won't be confused by that, because we don't need Mashiach to add confusion to the world. So what does it mean, Mashiach? Mashiach means the world finds its path. We've never done that before. Everybody had their own path, and this one thought this was good, and that's good, and when will we finally hit on the right answer? What we're here for, what the world was created for. That's all we need to know. It's not that complicated. It may be difficult because of all the misinformation and the mystery. So to plow through all of that and get to the answer is not easy, but it's not complicated. The answer is going to be very simple, very down to earth, very doable. We just got to get away from the confusion. And this thing is clearing things up for us. Scary, but things are becoming clear. Running around, going to movies, dating, socializing, nightclubs. Oh, come on. That became the definition of life? That's what we consider a good life? It's not life at all. It's an avoidance of life. It's a distraction from life. Because we're afraid of real life. We don't even know what it is. We tried to find it and we couldn't. All the big philosophers with all the heavy teachings, we haven't gotten the answer. So we gave up and just, do something to get through the evening and survive to the next day. That's not a life. Now we're starting to think what life is. Don't have to run anywhere. You don't have to get on an airplane. You don't have to leave town. You don't even have to leave your house. And you have a life. So somebody said it very, very well. What we're learning is that we don't have all the needs we think we have. We don't have many needs. And the things that we need, we have. So settle down. Stop running around with busy stuff. It's a good sobering and resetting of everything we know. That's an amazing thing. So if you want to do predictions, prophecies, before the coming of Mashiach, there will be the sounding of a loud shofar, and everyone will tremble, and it'll sober us up. Yeah, we got that? We got that. Okay. Everyone's listening. God has our attention now. So that was just to get your attention. So this is the loud shofar, which is kind of amazing because World War II was much worse, not just morally, because people were killing, but just in numbers. The numbers who died in World War II, about 100 million. It didn't shake up the world. It didn't sober us up. It just produced a Cold War. It didn't have the positive effect that this little tiny virus is having with much smaller numbers. But it really got our attention because it's not limited to the battlefield. It's everywhere. So now we got everyone's attention. Okay. So what happens when that shofar is sounded? All those who are confused and lost, either in wealth or in poverty, will come back and bow to God on the holy mountain of Yerushalayim, which means we will become good. That's a reliable prophecy. Because it's not really a prophecy at all. You see it. You see people becoming good. It's really impressive. We're suddenly not petty. It's when this thing is over, we will see all the good that it produced. Now we're confused. We don't know which way to look. Should we look at the good news or at the bad news? But when the bad news is over, and it will be very soon, we're going to see all the good that this produced. It's never happened before. Much, much worse things happened, and it didn't have this sobering effect on the world. And this is having that effect. It's definitely messianic because it's unprecedented.
Rabbi Friedman, what advice would you have for the people who are having a hard time coping with this situation, who don't have great family relations and are now confined to their families, to their houses, and are having a hard time coping with it. What advice would you have for those people?
Give it up. Throw in the towel. Stop it. You're with your family. That's where you're supposed to be. That's what you're supposed to be doing. And that's what you're supposed to be thriving on. Stop with the pettiness. Stop with the issues. They're over. Enjoy your family. Be good. Just be good to each other. There's no reason not to anymore. So if God is locking you into the house with your spouse, he doesn't mean to see who fights harder and who comes out and who survives. What he's telling you is, this is what you need, this is what you have, make it work. And in many, many instances, bad relationships are becoming so good. Because, a bad relationship is really about nothing. When you get down to it. You can't say this when you're doing marriage counseling. You can't say, will you guys stop it? You're fighting over nothing. You're both being so petty and foolish. So you say, oh yeah, there's a problem. Let's find a solution. Not anymore. There are no problems. We are sobered up. There is life, live it. And it'll work. It will work. Just stop with the resistance, with the battle of wills and who's right and who's wrong and who's going to win, who's going to lose. That is so petty. Let it go. You're a wife, be a good one. You're a husband, be the best.
I like the sound of that. We put more on the men than on the women.
Right.
When you say be good, some people I've noticed are lost when they say just be good to each other, and people are lost. How? What is this? What does it mean? How to be good to each other?
You wake up in the morning and you think, what can I do for my spouse? Don't ask. Think, what can I do to make my spouse's life more enjoyable? And then do it. And if your spouse says no thank you, then stop. Then you got the wrong thing. Do something else until it clicks. But that's your objective. Your objective is, what can I do to make my spouse happier? Not what can I do to fix him or to fix her or to stop the bad behavior. No. Just pure positive goodness. And it doesn't have to be dramatic. You don't have to remodel the house. Little things, tiny things. That's how love is expressed, in the little things. So nobody can say, what I need to do to make my wife happy is impossible. No, it's not. Just pay attention. Give her a little attention. You think you have been giving? You haven't. So just do it.
We actually get more complaints on the air about children, especially teenage children, who are not utilizing this time to become better people, who are utilizing this time to talk to friends and watch TV and be on the internet, and the parents don't have control of how to handle this and what to do. What advice would you give them?
The parents have to set the tone. Be the role model. Don't try to discipline your kids when they're teenagers. Be a model. You do what you need to do. They'll eventually follow. But the dread that people have, terrified to be alone in the house with their kids. Doesn't that tell us that we need a reset button? You're uncomfortable being alone with your children? Push the reset. Start all over again. This is not working. We should be thrilled to have all this free time to just us. That should be a pleasant, heartwarming thought, not a dreadful imprisonment. So if you're terrified of your kids and you don't know what to do with them, what do you think they're going to do? Avoid you. Stay online, put on their earphones and tune you out. So start enjoying them. Don't be afraid of your kids. Don't be awkward with them. This is a perfect opportunity. And when you get comfortable and you feel safe with your kids, they'll feel safe. And they'll take off the headphones, and they'll maybe even listen to what you have to say. Maybe. So just the fact that people are so terrified to be home with their kids proves that we need this time off desperately to get back to our lives. What kind of life is it where you're afraid of your kids or your spouse? What is this need to run out of the house? To do what? Something better? Something more important? Not unless you're Mashiach. Well, not unless you're a caregiver.
What about the painful distances? How do we cope with that? For instance, distancing ourselves from our elderly parents, grandparents. That hurts because it's been already too long, almost a month for some people.
It is painful, and people go to the hospital and nobody can come with them. Yeah, that's painful. I'm not even sure that that's a good idea, but that is what's happening. When you want people to recover, you have to give them emotional support too. So to isolate them from everybody in their family, I'm not sure that that's a healthy procedure, but that's what's happening. So yes, it is painful. But yearning for closeness, yearning to see somebody, missing somebody emotionally, that strengthens us also. We haven't had that in a long time. Like before there was all this travel and internet, how often did people see their family? If they lived in different cities, how do you get from here to there? Big, long, difficult journeys, particularly in Russia, where trains didn't always run on time, and you had to have papers. And so our parents, our grandparents, when did they see each other? So they wrote letters, which took a long time to deliver. But those letters are so beautiful. We've lost that art, the ability to express ourselves from a distance. And the computer is not the same. Not the same as sitting down and writing a letter. It's an interesting experience. We have this program for teenage girls, 3 weeks in the summer, a crash course on Jewish thinking, right? Now, they come there, we have 40 or 50 girls in a room. It's impossible. It's impossible to get their attention. In fact, they're all talking at the same time. So one time I said, excuse me, hey, excuse me, who are you talking to? If everyone is talking, who are you talking to? They're all in the room and they're acting as if they're texting. So nobody has to listen. Everybody is sending messages verbally. It was crazy. So one day I suggested that everybody take a pencil and paper and write a letter to your mother. You don't have to mail it. You don't have to send it. Just write it. I said, try it. Let's see what happens. And I was surprised that over 80% of them sat down and wrote a letter to their mother. The next day, it was like a whole new group of kids. They were not the same. They settled down, they listened, they communicated. It's like they discovered that they were normal after all. So I don't know what they wrote to their mothers. Most of them did not mail out the letter. But just the fact that they could put on paper what they were feeling and thinking, they matured 10 years overnight. Letters are amazingly effective. Texting is the exact opposite. Makes you crazier. So the fact that we miss our grandparents or our parents or siblings, that's a good thing. Miss them deeply so that when you get back together, it'll be a deeper, richer relationship and experience.
That's a great advice. Like all the advice that you give us and all the wisdom that you give us, and not just us, to the world. It's goodtoknow.com. YouTube channel, Rabbi Friedman. I so strongly recommend for everybody to visit both. I do very often, and when the times are good, you give me lots of wisdom. When the times are not so good, you give a lot of encouragement. And I thank you very much for you, Rabbi Friedman, and everything that you do for the world today. Thank you for finding this time for us, and thank you, and I hope we'll have these meetings often, especially in a time of need like now.
Well, look, I'm just giving you back what is really yours, because Chabad, Lubavitch, this whole philosophy, it all started in your country. So it's really yours, and I'm just giving it back.
The best gift we can accept. So thank you so much. Thank you. Be well, stay healthy. The best to you, your family, and everyone who's listening to us right now or watching us.
Amen. Thank you.